I really wanted to have Curt with us here. One, because I saw the feature article in the local newspaper.
People still read newspapers.
What's second prize, right? No, I saw the feature article that celebrated 10 years since you came here.
Yep.
And I don't need to tell you, in reading it with great pride, for you and everything you've done here, but also reflecting on the fact that we did come together.
Yeah.
I did my accidental bureaucrat thing and made the mistake of working in government for a little while at that same time, which I ended up loving, and I love our community and the things that we try to do here. But you and I immediately.
Yeah.
It was all about, well, it seemed to me like we're in the same business.
Well, it's because you started talking to me about innovation, and I know that I practice an ancient form, which is the theater, and I practice something that seems to be antithetical to what you do, but we think of ourselves as an innovative space. And so, Saul would talk to me about innovation, and I thought, I want to be an innovative space, in spite of the fact that we are, something that was invented by the ancient Greeks, who post-tribal society, and they start doing plays for each other. So, but I feel like in the 21st century, we have come back to being an innovative form that will actually take things to the next level.
Talk a little bit more about that. So,
sure.
Innovative form in the way you engage the local community. So not just we put on plays, you sit there, you watch, kind of thing.
Right. So in two very specific ways. One, and a lot of people are on their computers and they're tweeting and they're twittering and they're whatever the other verbs are. I don't know, I've never done any of that. I'm that much of a Luddite that I don't have a Twitter feed. I don't even have a Facebook account. I know. Yeah, I know. Never have. And yet, so as a part of that, what we do as a live experience is something that is more essential than it's ever been, right? So as the world becomes more and more mediated, as there are many screens to see through in order to see what real knowledge or understanding or truth is, we provide a live space for people to come together to actually hear, listen, and listen not only to the content that we provide, but listen to each other. I always say that our space is democratic because it provides for random interaction between communities that don't necessarily sit next to each other.
Sounds familiar to this crowd.
Right, and so that's in fact something that we do every night. We bring people together in that way. So we are an innovative space in that way. We are also innovative within our field because we're a community space first and foremost. And so instead of thinking of our audience as end users or ticket buyers, in fact, our driving philosophy is if we are in a transactional relationship with our audience, we are in the wrong relationship. So every relationship that we are in with them, we try to make it as profound, as deep, and as lasting as possible. We think we're married to our audience, and we want to be a good partner in the marriage.
What's going on with repertory theaters? Let's start nationally, and then we'll dive into Rhode Island a little bit. But are they thriving?
No, they're dying.
Oh.
They're dying. I mean, you all know this. This isn't a surprise to the people who are sitting in this room. In 2009, government funding left, and government funding isn't coming back for the arts. We currently get, as a field nationally, I mean, I'm talking all arts, not just the theater, we get about $179 million through the National Endowment for the Arts. That's for the whole country. France, just as a benchmark, France, a country the size of Connecticut with a lot more arrogance, or maybe about the same arrogance as Connecticut. France spends close to $6 billion on the arts, okay? So we spend $179 million. So the arts in this country is withering because resources are not going toward the arts. Simultaneously, in 2009, we saw, as a field, a lot of businesses say, whoa, we can only give resources to the things that are essential to our function, fair dues, and that money has been very slow to come back. So nationally, the field is shrinking. I also think that one of the problems in our field is that we have not made an investment in local artists, right? So we are very locavore. That makes us sound like we're eating actors, but we're very locally minded in terms of, we have a resident acting company. That resident company lives here. So they can put things on our stage, but then the audience also builds a connection to them. They can go into our schools. They can sing the national anthem at the Rhode Island State House for, celebration days. There are valences that happen as a result of being locally focused. And I think we've lost that as a field. And the thing that Trinity does distinct from that field is to be very locally based.
And so talk to me about that. So I remember conversations with you starting 10 years ago about your vision for how this theater would engage the broader community, how that in turn would create a lot of positive outcomes for the community. So 10 years?
Yep.
How'd you do?
Well, I think anyone who was here 10 years ago can look around Down City and say, it's a hell of a lot nicer place than it was 10 years ago. I think what investment in arts and culture does is that it spurs more people to want to make cultural spaces, right? So I always say that we are about 2 restaurants away from having the appropriate restaurant density in our local area. And I've talked to the local restaurateurs who agree with that. There are like 8 restaurants all within a less than 2-minute walking distance.
I think many of the people here found that out last night.
I hope so. And literally some of the best restaurants you could expect anywhere, we still need 2 more to have the right density. So that's all grown up. Bravo was here when I got here, but Gracie's had just opened. Right. Birch, which is across the street, wasn't there. That was a closed down little shop. AS220 Food around the corner. That wasn't there. Rosalina's wasn't there. The Pizza Kitchen, none of those things were there. So that's in 10 years. Imagine what can happen in 20 or 30, how the conversation can be changed and inflected. So that's just on an economic level. Right. Simultaneously, we've been doing a lot of work with communities that normally don't come to the theater. We have close to 20,000 kids a year who come through our doors as the State Theater of Rhode Island. We have a full range of education programs. We give tickets to folks from who are clients of the food bank, who are in transitional housing or battered women's shelters or in drug rehab programs. We have associations with Blue Star Theaters, which is a military group. So we reach communities that don't normally get reached by theater, and we pursue them because our goal is to change the world.
Yeah, it's been so much fun to watch. Really, it's been so much fun to watch. So from our standpoint, right from the beginning, when I told you what we do with this summit and where community and community engagement fits in, you welcomed us here. Sure. And have welcomed us here for all 10 years you've been here. And I can't imagine this summit anywhere else. People say to me every year, you're going to need a bigger theater. And to which I say, no, we don't. It's about community, it's about engagement, and I want the intimacy, and I love what the conditions of this theater represent to us. I'm incredibly grateful for that, and for that I thank you. Last couple of questions here. One, sure. I understand you have a rendition of Julius Caesar.
Indeed.
And did you cast a woman in the
lead
role?
Yes,
is that what I saw?
Yes, we have Annie Scoria playing Caesar. Yes. It seemed appropriate in this particular moment in time. Have you read Julius Caesar? You know what happens to Caesar? Hold your applause. But it seemed like the season to sort of think about power as it was seen through the prism of feminine energy, right? So we cast Annie as Caesar, and it's been fascinating, the discussions that we've been having. Especially one gentleman who over the weekend was like, Caesar is a man, he is a man's man, he's a manly man. I don't understand how you can cast a woman. I mean, I watched this whole thing, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I was like, this is the kind of thing that we should be doing so that when a woman politician appears, you're like, it should be a man, a manly, maybe, I mean, I hope that he'll have a slightly different conversation with himself having seen Julius Caesar played by a woman. It's also fascinating because a friend of mine who's a scholar, who's a brilliant mind, said, Shakespeare was writing Julius Caesar in one of the more tumultuous periods of Elizabeth's reign, when she had all of these conspiracies threatening her monarchy. And so he's writing about a woman monarch facing conspiracy, but he casts a man because that's what you do in his day. By casting a woman, I think I hope some or many of you will come and see this. It activates some of the language. There are these gendered oppositions that Shakespeare puts in the text. Cassius and Brutus are like men, 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 men. And Cassius at one point says, Rome used to be ruled by men, and we are now ruled by a womanish spirit. And we have become our mother's children. And so there's this gendered opposition that's in the text. So, it's just trying to find things that that create a new conversation around old work.
And I asked you that. We didn't rehearse that before, and I asked you that because I knew you'd have that kind of response. It's the kind of theater you do here.
Yes.
It's the kind of theater that repertory theaters across the country do, and it isn't the kind of theater, I don't mean to be derogatory, but it's not the off-Broadway, pre-Broadway packaged commercial stuff that fills the seats. It's a harder proposition to make.
Right.
And you've made it, and you continue to make it, and please don't stop making it, because it's really important.
I don't know how to make anything else.
I know you don't.
I'm a bit of a loser in that way. To use a Trumpian phrase. Is it Trump-esque? Trumpety-ian?
I have no idea.
Trump-tastic? So that's, but we won't ever change the way we're doing what we're doing. We have a great audience here. We actually have an amazing audience in Rhode Island who is hungry for this sort of stuff, and we're constantly trying to expand it. If you haven't been to see our plays, please come. We'd love to have you, and we love having you in our home for the Business Innovation Factory.
Well, thank you for having us, Curt.